You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. What we witnessed in the New York appeal hearing for R. Kelly was nothing short of astonishing. A moment of reckoning where a seasoned state attorney armed with a well-rehearsed script found herself at a loss for words when confronted with a simple yet profound question. One that struck at the very foundation of the wrongful RICO charges imposed upon R. Kelly. The question was direct. A judge seeking clarity in the midst of a prosecution built on speculation asked whether there was any evidence proving that R. Kelly's staff knew he was failing to disclose his health condition to the alleged victims. A fair and necessary question given that the RICO charges in this case rely heavily on the notion that his staff were engaged in a criminal conspiracy alongside him. And yet in response the prosecutor faltered. The moment shattered the illusion of confidence she had maintained while rattling off her scripted arguments. Instead of producing the evidence required to validate the government's sweeping claims, the prosecutor attempted to shift the burden of proof onto the judge himself, suggesting he could simply infer from the evidence available and conclude that the staff knew about this.
Was there evidence that the staff knew that Kelly wasn't disclosing his condition?
Well, a number of the women, in fact, obtained, got an STD. They were not just exposed to it, but they, in fact, got an STD.
But that doesn't go to the consent question. I mean, if they consented, then it wouldn't be a violation of state law, right? If the girls had consented, knowing that he had herpes, that would not violate state law?
Well, the state law, I believe the state law, the violation is specifically exposing somebody to an STD. The jury was instructed that R. Kelly did not also give consent in those, that they did not give consent in those circumstances. So that was part of the jury instructions.
Right, but my question is, was there evidence that the staff knew that there was lack of consent?
Well, I don't think that there was direct testimony on that, but I do think that a jury, drawing all inferences in the government's favor, was entitled to infer that from the evidence that did exist.
This right here is the precise moment where the prosecution's case fell apart. Where the true weakness of their argument was laid bare for all to see. Let's be clear. In a criminal court, proof beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. Not inference, not assumption, and certainly not speculation. For the state attorney to imply that the court should merely infer guilt from circumstantial suggestions rather than present clear and undeniable proof is a total disgrace to the principles of justice. And this is the core issue in R. Kelly's case. The prosecution has relied on an exaggerated and overreaching application of RICO charges. Charges that were never meant to be used in this fashion. RICO laws were designed to dismantle organized crime syndicates, powerful networks engaged in illegal enterprise, and not to convict an individual artist based on unproven assumptions about his entourage. For R. Kelly to be guilty under RICO, it must be unequivocally proven that his staff knowingly participated in a criminal conspiracy with him. Yet when pressed by the judge to produce this proof, the prosecution had nothing. Nothing but a weak attempt to push the responsibility onto the court to assume what they themselves could not prove. That moment of hesitation, that instant of panic when the prosecutor realized she had no convincing response speaks volumes about the baselessness of this entire case. If there was true evidence of conspiracy, it would have been presented without hesitation. Instead we saw an attempt to obscure the reality that there is no direct evidence tying R. Kelly's staff to any knowledge or deliberate concealment of anything illegal. This is where the justice system must take a stand. When prosecutors are allowed to weaponize vague interpretations of the law rather than rely on concrete proof, the entire legal process is compromised. The rule of law demands that every accused individual, no matter who they are, be tried based on facts, not on public perception, assumptions, or inferred narratives. And let's take a moment to reflect on what this means for justice as a whole. If the government can prosecute someone with charges of this magnitude without presenting undeniable evidence, then this sets a dangerous precedent for future cases. If the bar for RICO convictions is lowered to mere inferences rather than hard proof, then who is truly safe from wrongful conviction? The New York appeal hearing was a defining moment not just for R. Kelly, but for the integrity of the entire legal system itself. The judge's question cut through the smokescreen, exposing the weak foundation on which these charges were built. The government has stretched the boundaries of the law in an attempt to secure a conviction against R. Kelly, but in doing so they have revealed the absence of actual proof. And let's remember, the presumption of innocence exists for a reason. It is not the defendant's burden to prove innocence, it is the prosecution's duty to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That duty was clearly not met in this case against R. Kelly. If the judge must assume what the prosecution cannot prove, then there is no valid conviction here. This appeal hearing has raised critical questions that the prosecution cannot ignore. But the judge's question in particular has illuminated the fundamental flaws in their case, and as this appeal progresses, the burden remains on them to justify these excessive charges with actual proof and not assumptions, not inferences but real tangible proof. And if they cannot, then justice demands that this conviction be overturned. But this case isn't just about R. Kelly. It's also largely about the standard of justice we accept in our legal system. If we allow assumptions to replace evidence, then we're setting a precedent where anyone can be convicted on the flimsiest of claims. This is bigger than R. Kelly. It's about fairness, due process and the very essence of justice itself. If the prosecution truly had an airtight case, they wouldn't need to rely on inference by the judge for what they couldn't prove. If they had clear and undeniable proof, there would be no need for hesitation. But their inability to answer the judge's simple question tells us everything we need to know. We must ask ourselves, do we stand for real justice? Or do we allow the law to be twisted into a weapon of assumption and speculation like they did with R. Kelly's New York trial? The answer should be clear. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, stay informed, stay critical, and most importantly, stand for real justice. If you want to be featured in our video releases, send us your clips by emailing them to hnnewsroom242@gmail.com or use Google Drive for larger files. Be sure to include your name and any details you'd like us to know. We can't wait to showcase your contributions. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.